Peace. In the name of Allah, I'm Aubrey Muhammad. I pray that everyone is well. Hemsptead family, friends, and believers, welcome to my live session. I'm out here in the field, y'all, and I know it's a little late because it's dark early in Hempstead, so this is going to be brief. It's going to be about maybe 40 minutes today because it's getting dark. The sun is down, but luckily I'm right across from Lincoln Park. Lincoln Park is behind me in the background. They got the lights on there. So I'm going to just walk over there under the lights, as I do this. But I wanted to show y'all where I grew up in Hempstead. I'm over here on East Graham. Right here on East Graham at Monroe Place and Hudson at the corner here. And this is where I grew up in the early 70s to 79. The house is no longer here. This is a new one that was built here. This is 33 East Graham. It's right directly across from the front gate at Lincoln Park. And back in the early 70s, this was beautiful for me because this was, I had a porch. We had a porch because that was like our front yard. Me and Junie, Robert Fletcher, the Fletchers were next door, right there in the sky blue house, right there, the Fletchers. And that's at the corner of Hudson and East Graham. But this, we had a backyard, had a garage, a basement, attic, and that front porch had a screen. And this was our front yard, Lincoln Park. But when we moved over here, back, and I'm going to walk to the corner of Hudson real quick before the sun goes down, and I'll come right back to Lincoln Park. But you can see the lights behind me. So it's nice out here. It's nice, and this is very enchanting to me to come back to where I grew up back in the days, in the early 70s. Because actually, look at the shack right there. Where you see me at 33 East Graham, I think in the 90s and stuff, people were squatting here. So it burnt, a fire was at the house. But they burned down them houses for luck anyway. And me and the Fletchers, we literally shared our yards. What separated our yards was those bushes there. There's only remnants of the bushes left. People do all type of stuff to the house, rebuilding, so the bushes are no longer there. And we were interacted front and back. We were playing each other's yard. And as you know, this was so-called Latino. That's right. That displacement and replacement, devitalization, gentrification had been happening for decades in Hempstead. And it started really in the 90s. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go back to Lincoln Park where the lights is on and walk through there. This is an overview of the 70s, because it was such a beautiful time. I got to do a documentary on this. It's up the street was Junie's house. So many people here. Skeeta and them, Keisha, Lasita, where am I at here? Live in that house next door to us, next to Robert. Cynthia White lived down the street. Junie and them was in the other house. And over there, Derek Price. And this was the only, this lot is still empty. Sheesh, from the 70s. See this lot with this wooden fence? That's been there across from used to be Felder's Fieldless, where the Linden Knolls is. There used to be Felder's Fieldless florist. But that house where that brother's going into, the Puerto Rican brother, that was Puerto Ricans, the only Spanish that lived on this block. And I have many memories there that I'm going to talk about mainly like in a overview. But right now, I'm going to go in Lincoln Park. Because there's light over there. So that the lights, you can see me, but it's a nice sunset. And it's nice, and I don't want to mess up the lighting here. Yeah, the light is going down. Yeah, they had no street lights in front of Lincoln Park because the park lights at night were enough for this area. In fact, they're lighting it up now. The lights are on in the soccer field. It used to be just a football field. They chopped down the tree. Oh my God, me and Junie used to climb that tree and hang out in that tree a lot. Getting in trouble right here, 33 East Graham. This was the backyard is fenced in, but this was the place. Where we moved from 55 Grove to here over 33, that was from like, we was at 55 Grove from like 1971 to 72 or 73, something like that. I think 72, right? Because Mom came up here in 61. And I was born in 66 over on Lawrence and Wesley. Yeah, we lived in between there. So I'm coming in the park to get some lighting. But this is the center stage anyway, because what you don't see, these lights, I'll go by the, this is good. Yeah, this is good. What you can't see, shamefully, which I'm going to do a documentary on anyway. Why would you want to see it? Because it's the blight. It's what's happening in the village. It's what happened here. Back in the 70s, oh my God, that was a hoagie house. The hoagie house, where I'm at, right there, in that building. You can't see it because it's so dark. Well, the lights are lit behind me, but oh my God, there was the Brothers store was over at the corner over there. There was some Arab store, the Brothers, but I think their relatives own the little bodega over there on the corner. In that little strip mall, it was a few different stores. A laundromat, the hoagie house, and I know it was a deli at the corner because I think that was an Arab, because it was a brother that worked in there part-time, and they had a white German Shepherd. And that white German Shepherd, his name was Snow. And that white German Shepherd, he trained the dog. You know how they train dogs? To bark if somebody leaves the store without paying. That's horrible, to do that in a poor community, knowing that people be stealing. Well, we were poor, middle class. This is a lower class neighborhood. Hemsptead, back in the 70s, when you're earning money, saving, growing your families, building, back then you could save money. You know what I'm saying? Back in the 70s. So that bodega, right, that was an Arab bodega. We buy candy from there all the time. But actually, don't you know my good brother Dow Harvey and his wonderful family, his father, Mr. Harvey, he opened a little candy shop next to that bodega. That little store always had different things opening and closing in there, but he at one time in the early 70s had a little candy store. And me and Junie had a little part-time job in there. And some dudes were trying to steal out the store when we was working in there. And we tried to tell Mr. Harvey. He let it slide. He didn't say it wasn't nothing to him. Because he just loved doing business. He loved, the fact that he was doing business with us and letting the children in the neighborhood work in the store. Because we live right there. This was the center of action, Lincoln Park. And it changed now. Well, the basketball court is still here. The handball court is still here. But in the early 70s, this was all weeds and grass. And I think Sister Ann pointed out, back in the 70s, she said it was two scary-ass houses in the back there. Now I sort of remember, because then it was a field. We never came over here. We weren't allowed to, because it was so forbidden. This thing is huge. And she said it was two scary houses in the back somewhere. They had a few of those in Hempstead, scary houses. Up on Grove Street, they had a scary house with weeds, dark and unkept. And the weeds were just growing. And it was a huge land back then in Hempstead. That's gone, where you had a huge land on your house. Not anymore. So Lincoln Park, when this first opened, you see that the clubhouse there? Yeah, we called it the clubhouse. Didn't we call it the clubhouse? Yeah. That's the clubhouse right there. Arthur worked there, Arthur the teacher. And he was, and I used to come over here. I remember the first time it opened, because in that clubhouse, I guess you could call it the office clubhouse, he had brand new equipment. And I never smelled brand new equipment like soccer balls. I think it was lacrosse equipment. It had naturally basketballs, ping pong paddles, and nets and different stuff like that. Well, it was sports equipment, and it was all new. And the building was new, painted good. So as I grew up there, and men like Arthur, teachers, and who's that lived there? Randy and everybody. I got to do a documentary on this. I cannot let this go. It's teachers that lived on this block. Randy's parents, because I gotta get everybody together to get the names right and get exactly what they did. I'm gonna do a documentary on the beautiful people involved in this community. Because Arthur was like a counselor and a respected person in the neighborhood. He used to teach me how to do my grammar. I'm coming to the park and play. And he would teach me how to get my grammar correct. How to get, I used to be doing my homework and he would give me pointers and stuff while I'm in the park playing. And then they had, so we were being taken care of. They had the children's place here. It's gone. Oh, the children's place is moved. That sand place, it used to be over here. It used to be right here, I believe. Maybe they moved it. And we would be playing in there, then we would run inside, and then we would be hanging out near the pool. They did have the pool there. I believe the pool was there back then. I don't know when they closed it. But this was a softball field. And in Hemsptead, what you had in the 70s was you had a whole bunch of black-owned bars. Now my memory's really coming back. And right up the street was the Gladys Den. That's West Graham down there. West Graham. And at the end of West Graham towards Peninsula Boulevard, that was Gladys Den. And they had a softball team. Scorpio Lounge had a softball team. I think Ernie, the cab driver, was on the Scorpio Lounge. And they had all the bars at Hempstead. The Burgundy, I forgot the Burgundy name. And there was different bars all over Hempstead. But when I go back into the 80s, I'll be mentioning them because I used to be in them bars a little. I was a teenager going in the bars, hanging out, getting in trouble. And we would be in the bars. We were underage, but they would, let us slide. And the softball teams would come and they would play here. And they had a good time. And we would fellowship in those bars. The bars where they drinking. As a Muslim, I don't drink and smoke. Don't even eat, we don't eat pork. I don't even eat meat hardly, most Muslims. But our people needed a place to relax, so we had those bars. And also they had for veterans, which were many in Hempstead, if you survived Vietnam, and if you didn't die there, they had the American Legion. And in the American Legion, that's where my mom's boyfriend, I believe, my stepfather, Earl, that's when they first met, when she first moved here. Well, that's when they were together, and we were living together here at 33 East Graham. And that was a good time. We had big, beautiful black families, and we would go visit each other. Oh my God, now I'm gonna start talking about family and stuff. So families were a huge thing here. We would come to the park, we were protected. Nobody bullied us here. We knew a lot of families right over there at the drive. It was originally called Wilco, I believe, Martin Luther King Drive. Then it became Martin Luther King Drive because Martin Luther King Jr. drove down here in the 60s before he was assassinated. Martin Luther King Jr. visited Hempstead. Why? Because Hempstead was all black then, especially certain areas. And he drove down there, so they named the street after him. That was one of the few Martin Luther King Jr. drives that were named after him for his presence there. Most of the other ones in cities are just named ceremonially. But he literally drove down there to a celebration. He was celebrated here, because we were experiencing, the American nightmare / dream. To us, it's always been a nightmare. Our involvement with Caucasians in this nation. To immigrants and you other Caucasians, it's a dream. To us, your dream is our nightmare. Some of us had their dream. Some, social climate. Hempstead, we were saving up money. But a lot of people from the drive came here. And behind Linda Knowles over there, if you see Linda Knowles behind me, behind Linda Knowles was, we called it the projects. That's when we called that little small apartment the projects. It wasn't huge, but that was Elm and Parkside. And the other streets, that's a whole nother history. I got to do a documentary on this. Just that section of Hempstead is a whole history. And that was a project behind Linden Knolls, because that's Linden Street behind the Linden Knolls. And that used to be a field in Fieldless Florist, a garden spot. And we used to go in there, hanging out. They had little miniature orange tangerine trees and all type of plants. And we would walk through there, just exploring, having a good time, looking at their greenhouse in the back. And it was fun, hanging out around here. And the projects, I would go visit family over there. I knew people over there. They would come here when Lincoln Park opened. They had Campbell Park. That was a little small park. Lincoln Park, you could hardly compare. Lincoln Park had a little more action in the 70s, you know? So we had here, we had the Hoagie House, which was the main attraction. We had the drive. And then, let me see, further up the street, that is Franklin School, they had the Hollywood Deli. That was on the other side. Yeah, that was at the end of the street. We barely went there to get things. I think the Hollywood Deli was called. That's over there near the Rockville Center border at the end of Franklin. Yeah, it's at the end, right at the border. Sometimes we would walk over there, but we would visit friends around here, and everybody would gather around here. And in the early 70s, I lived right there. I don't remember a lot of beef and static going on here. I don't, because we knew each other, the big families. You know, if individuals, if you had fights and scuffs, okay, that's on you. But the big brawls and shootings and stuff, that didn't happen until like the 80s and the 90s and stuff like that. But the 70s, it was family around here. All right, now it's dark, so I can't show you everything, but I just wanted to give an overview of where I'm going, because I'm going to build on the 70s a little more, on mainly our status and what we're doing in Hempstead, and how we were strong in the 70s. You know what I'm saying? In the 70s, those families, we hung out with each other, and we had fun, we had good times. There were a lot of bars, but we had issues too. Families had issues, man, you know what I'm saying? Drugs, abuse. Back then, in the 70s, it was heroin. You know what I'm saying? Heroin. Some of our families suffered from that. Weed wasn't a problem. Drinking was a problem. Alcoholism, yes, we did have families like that. And hanging out around here, I remember one incident from the 70s that was like traumatic. Me and Junie was around the corner right there behind the Fletcher's house, the sky blue house right there. That's the Fletcher's house right there. Right there. We were on the opposite side on the street. And these two Italian men were hanging out in the car, and they were waiting for one of our neighbors. It was a brother, a father, and with his family in the neighborhood. He was using heroin. He was, he drinking a little too much. He came stumbling down the street, high, and we as children had observed those two because they stood out. People who weren't from this neighborhood, you stood out. If we saw you in this neighborhood, we would recognize you. Who was that? You know what I'm saying? They stood out like a sore thumb. Two Italian men in a small little blue car. And they were waiting for this brother. I don't know what the beef was. Maybe he owed them money, but he was on heroin. He came stumbling down the street. And as he got towards his driveway, one of them Italian men, and I remember him vividly, you know why? Because he reminded me of Puma later on. In the 80s, when I was hanging out in the streets getting in trouble, Frank Puma, he was a thin cop. He was an Italian cop, but he was skinny. Well, this guy was a little older. This was the early 70s, so he was a little older, and he was chubby. But so he stepped out with a mustache. He had a thick mustache. He stepped out that car, and it must have been 38. He lined it up like with two hands, and he took a shot. Pow! And the brother that was stumbling down the street, he took off like the Flash. He was gone. And we as children, we was like yards away from this, witnessing this. And we didn't panic and scream. Do you know why? Because that Italian man was so cool. He was cool as a cucumber. He was probably a hitman because he was so cool. He took a shot, and And the expression in his face was like, damn, I missed him. And he didn't shoot again. And he calmly took the gun, put it back, got back in the car, and slowly drove right down the street and down towards the highway, the parkway. So Diane, my aunt, we weren't physical related, but we grew up. We called each other auntie, uncle and cousins and stuff, the children, Junie and Terry. We called them cousins. And we hung out a lot in this house. Diane, she heard that shot. She came out. She said, what happened, y'all? And we said, they took a shot at such and so. And she screamed, oh, yeah, run, get out of there. And that's when we jumped on our bikes. And I ran down the street to the back on my 10-speed. I had to wait till I get in front of Cynthia White's house until I jumped on my 10-speed and went riding down Elizabeth. And the brother that got shot at, he was jumping through the backyards. I seen him run across Elizabeth and down the other streets towards, I think that was Crookshank. He was cutting through them yards fast. So that was the one major experience I remember. And I could count it. Another, I remember 2 drug dealers being chased by Hempstead police. They was laughing in the car. They had a green Tornado, something like that. One of them green cars. And they were throwing drugs out the window as the cops was chasing them. And the 2, they were laughing. And the parents had gathered us together on Elizabeth. Said, y'all stay, get out the street. That was maybe 2 instances that I remember. Growing other than that, it was pretty basically good. Now, people got family secrets and stuff, that they don't talk about. That's your trauma. That's your story. And that's for you to overcome and heal. But for the most part, we can get back to our extended families. And that's the key in Hempstead. All right, y'all, it's about 5:20. I'm going to be closing out soon because it's getting cold. It got cold on me quick. I was going to go down, had it still been light, I was going to go towards the Hoagie House, but that whole strip mall had been, shut down because they plan on building a firehouse there and a water tower for the new white city they plan on building. And the thing is, see, they never planned this stuff with us. They never planned things to benefit us. They planned it to be detrimental to us. Because we don't plan. We rely on others planning. And that messes us up, man. We got to overcome that, family. We have to be our best planners. We have to be the ones in charge and giving instructions, giving demands, and make an agenda for people to abide by and to reckon and do justice by us. And we did that this election. We proved that our unity and our voice and our demands, things ain't business as usual. Changes is being done. And that's the whole point of my live, which I'm closing out in a couple of minutes because it's getting cold and it's getting dark. It got dark early. The moon, I can see the moon shining. But the lights is on in the park. And we don't have events in the park anymore. You know what I'm saying? We need more events here that cultivate and bring out good things instead of all these ceremony and games and sports, But I'm going to wrap this up now, y'all, because I wanted this to be an overview too, because later in the week, maybe towards the weekend, I'll finish the 70s when I'll discuss a little more experiences and stuff, hanging out with people, having friends with family and everything, and, good times in Hempstead and how things have changed for the worse, and things have changed. I could guarantee you this area is probably maybe 80% Latino now. This used to be native, this was all black in the 60s, in the 70s. And then in the 80s it changed, but it didn't change to our benefit. It changed to our detriment. We didn't make the change. Others transformed it against us. And it went against our families, went against what's best for us, our interests. We lost all our businesses in Hempstead. Don't you know in the 80s? Oh no, let me get back in the light, y'all. It's dark out here. Yeah, that's why I'm wrapping up anyway. Back in the 80s, every store and business on Union is that Union Street or Union Avenue? On the Heights was black owned for a while. And then after a while, it changed to different hands. Because we didn't support our own, and in our building business, we're not trained to provide the best. We're not trained in customer service. We're not trained to serve each other. We trained to be in how we in the politics now, where we want others to serve us. And that's not good. That benefits the few while the many suffer. And things get worse for us. Things don't get the same. Things don't get better, better for the few. Because after a while, them few got to get moved out. Hemsptead is being gentrified. Why? Because we fell asleep. Because we trust those around us to govern us. We trust those officials and politicians over us, and that school board. We trust them to do justice by us and do what's, but they do not. They only do what to benefit themselves in their careers. Everything for us is secondary. So family, thank you for joining me. Later on, I'm gonna do 2 more lives over here on the Heights. Maybe this weekend, one, maybe even Friday, and then the weekend back in the Oceanside with Bomb. And let me see if there's any questions or comments. Okay. Sister Leigh Hunt McDonald, amazing how things have changed since the 70s. Yes, it has. It changed dramatically. Because we fell asleep and let everything, let everybody take over instead of us getting involved. My brother Sean, assalamu alaikum, brother. He says facts. That's right. Actual facts. We fell asleep at the wheel and let everybody else take over. And we owned a lot of these houses too. Own the houses, own some businesses, but we didn't know what was happening. People gave us sweet words, they gave us sweet promises that things were getting better, when in fact they were working against us. But we gonna work it against them. We fighting them. We gonna take it to them, no more. Things are not gonna be the same. Playtime is over. Game time is over. This is serious time. Time for us to overcome and do what we need to do to take charge of our community and shape it for us. Because this is what you get. You had a softball field, had a football field. Now, it was beneficial to them. Now it's a soccer field. And they're practicing soccer, for what team? I don't even know what team it is. Do we have pride in what we do anymore? We got these, let me get back over here. Do we have pride in what we do anymore? Do we have strong coaches and teachers like Arthur and other teachers and coaches that live in the community, that know us, like Prospect School, Franklin School, especially Prospect. Matter of fact, when we moved to 33 East Graham, we were supposed to go to Franklin School. But me, Sean, and Yvette, my 2 sisters, we remained a Prospect because it was so awesome that we knew the teachers, we knew everybody. So we kept going. We would walk here to Prospect for years. And over at Franklin, a lot of them teachers knew the children over on the drive and everywhere because it was family. And we got to get back to that. Stop having this alienated relationship, these strangers. That's the oligarchy that does that, man. They sit up here and get imports. They get these immigrants. And they get these new people, to build a community. The new people to displace you, to replace you. Because they plan on erasing us. And their plan is working, and they're doing it. We could counter it. Back with family love, extended family, loving ourselves, and more importantly, teaching and being in charge of what's going on around us. We've lost that, but we're getting it back. But Lincoln Park, it still looked the same, but I'm gonna come here during the day. It got dark early. I was supposed to be here 4:30. That's still too dark. At 2. I was coming at 2 to 3, but I had take care of some business. But I will be back like Friday in the weekend, one of those days, to do part 2, where I'll go into a little detail about experiences over here in the park, down the street. Who was that? Anthony and Chris used to live down the street. A whole bunch of children, man, we played with all down here, down East Graham, especially Elizabeth and Martin Luther King Drive and over in the projects. And I may even go over to Parkside. So I may ask a guest to come and we discuss about what was going on in Parkside in the 70s. I'll continue the 70s. And the next session, then later the 80s. In the 80s, from my perspective, that's going to be a whole different live. That session is going to be about me being in the streets from 79 to 87. Yeah, it was rough. So I was living a rough life. But over here in the 70s, this was a sheltered life because we had extended family, and I'm going to show the contrast, especially this Friday and the weekend to finish the 70s. But the 80s, that's going to be raw. I may go a few places in Hempstead, but I definitely have to go during the day when it's a little more light out and it's a little warmer. All right, family, thank you for joining me. And I'll continue this I'll continue this Friday in the week, Friday and Sunday, more than likely. And I may even have another recipe cooked up for us. Maybe even do some bake some bread or some rolls or something. All right, family, thank you for joining me. I hope that your day was well. It's nice weather. It's cold, but it was very nice weather otherwise. And I pray that your night is well and that you're safe with your families and that you stay strong spirit and stay focused. Don't be discouraged by the election because it was a selection. And it's much for us to build on, us pooling our resources to making demands anyway, regardless to who is in ceremonial and managerial power. All right, family, I leave you as I greeted you in the ancient Arabic words of peace. Assalamu alaikum. Peace unto you. Enjoy the rest of the evening. Grace and peace, family.